Welcome to the Digital Marketing Insights podcast, brought to you by Brightside Digital.
Hi everyone, welcome to the show. I'm delighted to say we have James today, who's a content creator. How are you doing, James?
Doing pretty good. Thanks for keeping me.
Oh, you're very welcome. James, we start off. Can you tell everyone about yourself, your career to date, and what you've been doing in creating content, please?
Okay. Well, I've always loved creating content in some way. Started off when I was quite young, making home videos with the camera and stop motion with toys, and eventually that took a backseat, and I picked it up again when I was coming up to, I think, around 17-ish, 17, 18, where I started making YouTube videos and editing, very basic editing, and uploading that to a channel that really didn't get any traction. After a while, again, that was put to the side to focus more on school, and then when I had more time, I'm back to it. But I wanted to find more people who liked the content and wanted to engage with it, so I had to look up ways in how to promote it, network with other content creators, making friends basically through the platforms that you would typically share video with, like YouTube, and eventually starting with Twitch. After a while, I tended to enjoy streaming a lot more, so I just stuck mostly with Twitch, and then a lot of the content that was produced there I would pull down, edit up, and then put up to YouTube, all the while keeping up with optimizing the tags that were put onto streams, onto videos, just to make it more findable, really.
You've kind of touched on it already, but can you talk more about when you were discovering Twitch and obviously YouTube before that? How did you go about creating content, and any campaigns or work that you were really happy with, proud of, you felt was successful?
Well, I first found YouTube, I think maybe 2009, 2010. It was still quite early, and I had no real ambitions to upload my own content until I had started to watch other people with content that I could see myself also making, thinking, I may not be able to do it as good as this straight away, but I would love to get into this. It seems like a lot of fun. When I started there, like I said, it didn't take off. And then when I started with Twitch, I got in with a game on Twitch that was quite niche, and I was able to build a community through there. And with that, I was able to funnel more traffic to my my YouTube, the new YouTube channel I had made a couple over the years, getting better and better with each iteration.
And tell me about how you go about actually creating the content. I think a lot of people that listen about around video, and probably in the early days of YouTube where live wasn't an option, but I know Twitch is mainly a live platform. Can you talk me through the recording process, equipment you use, and any tips and softwares and stuff that are involved?
A lot of people tend to think that you need this big elaborate setup to be able to have any sort of fun or even success with video creation. The most important thing is that you don't need to have a successful channel to enjoy it. And the important thing with content creation is the enjoying part, because as soon as you start to do it as something you feel like is more akin to a job that you wish you had a better job, you've already lost half the battle with content creation. Initially, as long as you have, let's take for example, if you're doing it all from a single computer, there's lots of programs like OBS, Streamlabs OBS. There's new platforms coming out like Metal, which is great for saving clips rather than long form. They're all free. Most of them are most video recording, or screen recording at least, is free. You don't need to have the best hardware in terms of a computer either. Very basic gaming setups that you would set you back no further than a console, probably good enough to get you started. Again, mics, obviously a very nice mic is optimal, but even a headset mic that you would use just to play with your friends online, that's enough. In terms for consoles, though, you do need a bit more. Like there are small HDMI cards that you can plug into your console that interface with your computer. If you're going to do it that way, though, you don't need as big or as beefy a computer as you would if it's all on a computer, because you don't need to have the processing power to play the game and render the content. Um, Absolute necessities are really all you need. You don't need big fancy editing software either. There's a lot of ones that are free. For example, like one for thumbnails, making thumbnails and images, which is as well a half of a, maybe not half, but a very important aspect of getting people to even come into your video, because unfortunately most people don't look at titles anymore. It's a lot of what catches your eye thumbnail wise. There's software like GIMP if you want to go free. Same with audio. If you want to edit your audio separately to the video, there's systems like Audacity, or Audacity, whatever way you want to call it. It's the same thing. Yeah, and a lot of some of the free softwares, like I'd mentioned, Metal, you can also tweak and edit clips together before uploading them.
I think yeah, you've made some excellent points there, and the thumbnails is a really important part. I obviously I'm familiar with Mr. Beast, and I watched his when he went round his office, basically his whole warehouse of equipment and different things. I think their budget is $20,000 a month on thumbnails. That's what they'd spend on, and I think that equates to about eight or nine thumbnails. I might have to double check
Mm-hmm.
that one, but I think it's around that. Obviously, there he has one of the biggest channels out there, so it's about
Mm-hmm.
the quality that they're trying to produce there, and they're always changing it. But I'm glad you mentioned that side of things, and it's important from a YouTube point of view. What I'd like you to talk about briefly, James, is Twitch, and just for anyone out there that doesn't actively go on it and know much about it, can you just give us a couple of minutes to explain what Twitch is and how it's optimized?
So Twitch is a live streaming platform owned by Amazon, and it's optimized more so in terms of how many viewers you have. When you're scrolling through streams, by default, it'll all be based on view count. However, you can always optimize it with searching through tags. Like if you want to watch something specifically from a British streamer, you can add a tag for British or England, or whatever sort of relevant tag you'd want to use for that, or for an MMO, massively multiplayer online game, fighting games. You can really whittle down the searches that'll come up for you by adding these tags. And when you're streaming yourself, these are also incredibly important, because you want people to be able to find you um, with as relevant tags as you can possibly have. Like for myself, there's very few Irish streamers, so I would have tags like Irish or Ireland.
Yeah, you kind of hit the nail on the head, and I think that's something that a lot of listeners on this podcast will be interested in. There is a real lack of uh, Irish either Twitch users or YouTube. Is there any tips and advice? I'm guessing I'm taking a leap here, James, but is mainly your Twitch work and stuff around gaming? Is that was that your content area?
Yeah. For the predominantly it was, but for some of my streams, I would have more of a creative drive. Like when I was writing, I would also engage with my audience and invite them in to help develop the sort of world I was writing about. So it's not just gaming. Like if you can build a good audience and a good community, they'll be there for you almost regardless of what you're playing or doing on stream.
Yeah. Yeah. And in terms of optimizing on Twitch, can you tell me a little bit about that? Can you tell me about how someone using the Twitch platform could optimize? How could you find your niche or create your content in that area?
Well, there's a few good sites that you can use. One that I used mostly is called Sully Gnome, as in the garden gnome. Uh, and basically, that would give you statistics on the most watched categories, how many streamers are in the category, as well as how many people are viewing the category. And you can use that kind of thing to whittle down what you want to start as. Because if, say for example, if you wanted to get into it and you started with, let's take a big game, Apex Legends, if you're familiar with it, very large game, about maybe 250 to 300,000 viewers a day, concurrent. Getting started in a place like that is going to be a lot more difficult than getting started in a much smaller game, like, say for example, New World, where there might be a couple of thousand. Um, so really, you want to be able to kind of compromise on your interest and your potential audience's interest. That's probably the best way to start to optimize um, your foundation. Once you're getting a little bit more into it, you can update your the quality of your stream. Like for example, your bit rate, to make sure that people stay. If you're putting out good content, word of mouth is typically the best way that new people are going to come in. Um, and also updating your overlay to make it seem a lot more appealing and relevant to your game. Like if you've got a very vibrant game, you want the overlay, like if you're using a webcam, and typically that does help with growth as well, I might add. People who stream with a webcam, whether you're big or small, you're likely to grow a lot quicker than someone without it. There are exceptions, but like that's why they're exceptions. It's not the norm. And adding on to the overlay thing, like if you have, like I said, a bright game, you want an overlay that sort of meshes well with your game, or one that really conveys your theme. Like if you've got a very, um, let's say, cyberpunk, if you really like cyberpunk, you want your overlay to reflect that as well.
Interesting, yeah. And there's a lot of people that are probably listening to this show that aren't familiar with this space at all, but there is some major players. Like, would Ninja be one of the biggest gaming players? Who are the biggest?
I don't know if he's still the biggest, but he was. I mean, he was on national television in the States for a few times, and I believe he held New Year's Eve in Times Square at one point. So he was basically a household name, and he has put out content aiming at newer streamers and newer content creators. I believe in his book, some tips though are a little out of touch, because his growth was so. He skyrocketed in popularity from his PUBG days into Fortnite, and he doesn't have really the organic, steady growth that most people would experience. That's not to say that some of his tips aren't good, but some of them, like for example, focus on your game, don't talk to your chat. That's from my experience and the experience of a lot of the friends I've made who were also streamers, and other streamers who I've looked up to as I grew. And that's not something that they would recommend at all, because you want to put yourself out there either as a character, like for example Dr. Disrespect, who's now a YouTube based one, or if you want to put yourself out there as a very authentic streamer, like you put yourself out there, like what I did, you still want to engage with your chat and talk to them as if they're there,
Yeah. This kind of area of digital does fascinate me because, I look at reports around. The reason why I mentioned Ninja is I know reportedly he's made 500 million. He reportedly made in a month 500 million, but on average he makes about 500,000 a month
Mm-hmm.
from his sponsorships, merchandise, brand deals, for his streaming. And I'm familiar with a lot of the work. I think one that's kind of moved into the kind of football mainstream a lot recently is I Show Speed, who does a lot of FIFA and made his name from gaming, first of all.
Mm-hmm. First of all,
like,
yeah. First and foremost, gaming.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, not every streamer has had a very clean record, like I Show Speed.
Yeah, and what I would like you to kind of help everyone listening to the show is kind of talk about this market and movement and potentially the opportunities that might be within it.
So sure, yeah. So a lot of the people who are getting into this are mostly just gamers like myself who want to, chat and game with people who are like-minded. But as part of a marketing thing, a lot of these bigger streamers are fantastic advertising opportunities for companies. Like for example, like you mentioned with Ninja and his sponsors, he'd sponsor drinks, like Red Bull, I believe, is a big sponsor of his. Um, well, more so medium streamers would be sponsored with games. Like a very common one you'd see would be Raid Shadow Legends. That's a very it's almost a joke that some people are getting sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends. I mean, I've had that as well because it's a very large company, and they want to get more and more players out onto the game. And what better way to do that than having a gamer play it and show their gamer friends?
And really, marketing on its base level is all about awareness.
Hmm.
And it's clear there's so much opportunity in YouTube and more in Twitch, although YouTube is a much bigger daily user platform.
Yeah.
But like, are you aware of any other kind of sponsorship deals? Do you know how they operate? And is there any kind of marketing opportunities that you could recommend to anyone on this show today?
Well, there's one site that I used to use as a sort of go between with sponsors would be Stream Elements. They have for their more up and coming and more successful streamers, they have a tab where you can basically browse potential sponsors. Um, and so you can sign up to these, and then you're given, let's say, X amount of hours that you have to stream you playing the game, and you get bonuses if there are other new players who sign up for for the game through the link that the sponsor provides. They also have some sort of overlay that you can add to your stream um, to show people who are even just previewing and scrolling through streams that this game exists.
Yeah. Do you know what? I think that's brilliant advice for anyone listening. If you are thinking of just expanding out your business awareness or marketing awareness, check out Stream Elements. Look to be a contributor. See if you're an advertiser and see what opportunities are there, because there is a lot of impressions as long as the target audience matches,
Hmm.
obviously, your business.
Yeah, I'll add though that sometimes taking these sponsors can be a bit of a double-edged sword, as in some of your community will sort of have a distasteful look on you from then on, thinking that you've sold out and you're no longer just like one of the boys, gaming and having fun with them. But if you want to succeed as a content creator, you do need to sort of look past that and want to cultivate an audience that wants to see you grow. And um, those who have disdain for those who are getting the sponsorships, they're not really the kind of audience you want to keep around anyway. As difficult as that it may be to hear for some people.
Yeah. I think that's just a cultural thing to some extent though, because
Hmm.
the reality is you're gonna have to, if you wanted to make gaming, let's say stream gaming, your career, and you wanted to be an influencer in that space, yes,
Hmm.
you have to be aware of what deals you take and do that. But to leave the rest of the people that are doing it for free, you have to pay your bills and you have to build your brand, and it's
Yeah, that's it exactly. And I've always said, as long as you're not compromising your values and the values that you promote on stream, by taking some of these sponsors, then get that bag, as some of them say, like take the sponsorship if you can.
exactly that. Exactly that. Away from your strengths at the moment, James, is there any areas you're looking to upskill into, and why?
To upskill, I think maybe being better at search engine optimization. Like I'm pretty sure some others on the podcast have mentioned algorithms, and unfortunately, they're never like stagnant. They're almost always being updated or changing in some way, at least every few months. So you do need to be able to keep up on top of that. And I would in future be like to be able to recognize those patterns and jump on the changes, as they're coming, rather than a couple of weeks afterwards.
Really well said. And in terms of yourself, is there anywhere where you go for new information to stay up to date or to upskill?
So yeah, I would use Google to be able to basically Google to see if there's any changes coming with algorithms. Like typically, there's news outlets for any changes that are coming with, say, the YouTube algorithm, or if there's changes coming with partnership deals between Twitch and streamers. A lot of the times, they will also email you, notifying you of any changes. Not so much YouTube with their algorithm, from what I've found. There are also other content creators whose niche is to cover these things, who are a fantastic source for these.
And is there any areas in the digital industry as a whole that really excites you that you think might improve this space or improve your own work? Is there anything coming that you think, oh, this is huge for people to look out for?
Honestly, at the moment, I mean, I was thinking VR would have really taken off, but as we've seen, it's not really. I would like to see more innovative things like using VR to produce art, or um, being able to being able to get people into your VR world and talk to them as the chatters, like similar to what Meta is doing, but a little bit better and more accessible. Ways to integrate your stream with your chat. I could definitely like to see more of that.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think the NFT space and the whole gamification there could really help gaming for the same thing, integrating
Mm-hmm.
your streams and your work, and allowing some sort of incentives or kind of reinvesting back into your community, different schemes and different ways. So I think that whole space will develop in the next year or so.
Yeah, I've seen some projects that are a little bit sketchy, like with I think Logan Paul tried to do one as well that sort of flopped spectacularly. Some of them are very genuine though. Like there's one I've been keeping an eye on for I think over a year now called Alluvium. Some from the looks of it, it's a similar sort of exploration mixed with Pokemon, and you sort of catch these creatures and battle them against other ones, and these more rare creatures are worth more as NFTs in the game.
Yeah, that's super interesting because there's more ownership of, rarity and uniqueness.
Mm-hmm.
It's like card collection mixed with digital aspects mixed with gamification. It does make sense. It's definitely a space I can see exploding, and there only needs to be one
Yeah,
flagship
yeah,
brand or business to really explode a space like Pokemon did back in the 90s.
yeah. I think it was in '95 that first came out, and as long as these NFT and play to earn games rather than pay to play, as long as they're done right, I could definitely see it being an entire new like successful genre as the FPS genre is now.
Yeah, really well said. Lastly, James, we always end the show with this question, which is, if you could bottle up one personality trait that you have yourself that you could pass on to others, what would it be?
Honestly, I think this could be a tougher thing because I think being adaptable is something I'm quite good at, and I think if more people were adaptable, it'd be probably less conflict in all aspects. If people can see from other sides, but also authenticity um, in showing who I am as a person and as a player in the digital space anyway as a player. I think other people would do well to be able to show who they are instead of masking behind a screen.
Yeah, brilliant. Really well said. James, that's it. Thank you so much for being part of the show. If anyone wants to reach out to you, please tell me all your handles, your Twitch, your YouTube, everything, and your work to date. Just anything where people can find you.
Well, for my content, you can find me at Merlin Da Wizard. If you ever want to come by, I'm a big fan of magic in games, so Merlin was a very easy pick for me. Merlin underscore DA as Da underscore Wizard, and you can find me on Twitter and Twitch and YouTube as well.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, James. Thanks everyone for listening.
Thank you so much for having me on.